Hello everyone and welcome back to the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge. Game 4 in the third match ended in a draw, which means we are going into Armageddon. So after a lot of videos and a lot of games, we have reached the final game. And Nakamura chose the colors in the Armageddon. He chose the black pieces as he usually does, saying that he deals better with having less time on the clock. And if some of you still don't know what Armageddon is when a match is a tie in the end, then they have to decide who is the winner, and the player with the white pieces gets an extra minute. Most of the times it's an extra minute, and he has to win the game. Otherwise, if the game is a draw, then the player with the black pieces wins the game and the match, of course. So without further ado, let's check out what happened in the Armageddon game. Dubov opened with e4 and Nakamura went for e5. And now comes knight to c3. So after a long time we get something new, the Vienna game. We have knight to c6 and now g3, the Louis Paulsen variation, preparing to fianchetto the light square bishop. We have bishop to c5 by Nakamura, and now comes bishop to g2. We have knight f6, preparing the castle. Black can be very happy with his development here, and knight g to e2 now, preparing to castle maybe d3, f4 in the future, and so on. So d6 by black, we have d3 by Dubov, and a6 now, preparing to further expand on the queen side. We have castles by Dubov and bishop to e6 by Nakamura. And this position already has been reached before several times, but it's interesting that Nakamura had it against Timur Gareev in 2019 in the World Blitz Championship, where knight to d5 was played. But here Dubov plays h3 against Nakamura. So a slow move, Nakamura replies also with a slow move, h6, taking away the g5 square from white's bishop, and king to h2 now, just improving the position of the king. Maybe later on you're going to play f4, since you no longer have to worry about this pin. And as white allowed it, Nakamura goes just d5, strikes in the center. We have e captures on d5, knight captures, and now f4 by Dubov, as it is now possible. The king is no longer on g1. We have e captures on f4, and now bishop captures on d5. It's a new move. There is a game where knight captures on f4 was played, but here bishop captures on d5 is a new move by Dubov, and already as of move 11 we have a completely new game. And now the thing is, of course, you have to pick up your piece, you have to recapture. However, you first have to play f captures on g3 with check. Nakamura missed this. He played bishop captures on d5 first, saying that, okay, of course, white has to capture. However, knight captures on f4 instead. And now Nakamura has some problems. His bishop is under attack, and he has to move it. There's a double attack here on the bishop, and his king is still in the center of the board, which is very dangerous. White has an open f-file, the queen can get into the game very easily. So Nakamura goes knight e7, hopes to castle on the next move, but queen h5 by Dubov puts pressure on f7, but also a triple attack on the bishop now. So you again don't have time to castle, you have to defend the bishop. So c6, and now it's only a matter of removing the defender of the f7 square. So here knight captures on d5, and there is not much more you can do here. C captures on d5 was played, and now of course well, you can even pause the video and try to find the best move for white while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting the, well, I don't know, it's like a triple attack, and for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight to e6. Point is, now the queen is under attack, the bishop is under attack, black cannot capture due to the pin. There is now a double attack on the f7 pawn from the queen and the rook, so it's just black's position completely falls apart here. And the problem with the g6 is queen e5. Again, the queen is under attack and also the rook here, so black will be just completely lost here. So Nakamura tried queen to d6. He said, okay, I'm going to give up the f7 pawn and maybe try and rush my king over to the queen side. Maybe it's still playable. I only need a draw. I don't really need to win this game. However, Dubov doesn't go for the f-pawn. He goes for the g-pawn with check. Nakamura moves, and now rook captures on f7. And now black's position is just terrible. Nakamura went rook a8 to f8, wants to get his rook into the game, but now bishop to f4. Dubov finds a nice in-between move to get his rook into the game. And here the problem is, if you don't have a good square for the queen. If queen g6, white can just capture it. The knight is pinned. You cannot move the knight. Or also, if you try something like queen to c6, black just gets mated. Queen to f5 check, the knight still cannot capture. So after the king moves, now you have a double attack on f8, just captures with check, and this is just checkmate as the bishop covers this, and the knight covers this. The king has nowhere to go. So after bishop f4, Nakamura finds a way to stay in the game, but he needs to give up the queen. He played rook captures on f7, and now bishop captures on d6. Dubov, of course, grabs the queen. Rook to f1 with check now. The rook is nicely defended here. King to h1, and now bishop captures on d6. So rook to e1, Dubov brings the rook into the game, and rook h to f8. So Nakamura still has some counterplay to two rooks for a queen. But it's much easier to play with the queen since the king is on an open board. So queen g4 check, king to c6, and now just knight to e6. Attacking the rook, remaneuvering the knight, hoping for a poor move with the rook, so maybe knight to d4 check picks up some material. However, we have rook to f6, which is a good square, but still knight to d4 check. We have king to b6, and now rook to e2, offering a trade here, improving the king's safety. Rook f1 check, king to g2 now. Rook f2 will no longer be possible. And now knight to c6. Nakamura wants to trade off this knight, so knight captures, we have b captures, and c3 now. So now it's queen and rook against the two rooks and the bishop. Of course, much better for white. However, Nakamura only needs a draw, so perhaps Dubov will maybe lose on time, maybe he'll just get into time trouble and start making mistakes, so anything can happen. So rook 1 back to f5 by Nakamura, and now b4. Of course, Dubov will now start pushing his pawns on the queen side, king b7 and queen to g7 check. Nakamura blocks and just queen captures on h6. So now you even have a passed h-pawn, which you can use in the future. Bishop back to c7, and now queen back to e3. We have bishop to b6 attacking here, also maybe freeing up the f2 square, but just f4, not worried about this. Bishop back to c7, and now even h4, and this is a beautiful move for Dubov, because basically he's saying, I don't care about rook g7, I don't care if you capture on g3. Point is, after king h3, you can even give up the queen here, and after all the trades, you're up 2 pawns with a completely winning passed h-pawn. So not much for black to look for here. So Nakamura tried a5, but just a3 for Dubov. We have a4, Nakamura closes the position, but now queen to d3, preparing b5 to bust open the position and hopefully checkmate Nakamura's king. So rook to f1, and now of course b5. Nakamura can just wait and see what happens. Rook back to f6, b captures on c6 with check, king captures, and now queen to a6 with check. We have bishop back to b6, but now queen captures on a4, just gobbling up all of material. King back to b7, and now queen to e8, preparing rook to e7 check to trade off at least one pair of rooks. So rook to f8 attacking the queen, but now rook e7 with check. Bishop to c7, and now queen to b5 with check, and there's not all that many squares left for the king. So rook to b6 blocking, but now there are a lot of ways you can win this. Queen captures on d5 is winning, but Dubov goes for the absolute quickest way. Rook captures on c7 with check, and it was in this position that Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, and Daniil Dubov is the winner of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge, taking first place in a really tough competition, and taking a first prize of $45,000. So here you resign because after king captures, queen c5 check picks up the rook here, and then it's just a queen against the rook, and you're also up 4 pawns, which also helps, and this is just unplayable. So after rook captures on c7, Nakamura resigned, and Dubov is the champion. So there you have it. That's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it and this short coverage of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge. I would like to thank Karl Ivar Anushver, Skums TV, Dale Bowden, Alexander Akri, and Mathis Financial Corporation for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Not continuing the coverage as the event is over, but I will check up on your suggestions to see if there's something I've missed, and then hopefully we will be able to continue the good stuff, meaning the Paul Morphy saga. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.